Hello, everybody, and welcome to our virtual tax school. My name is Omar Medic, and I am the product marketing manager for TaxWise. Our topic for today that I know a lot of you are excited about will be how to start and grow your tax business. Thank you for joining us today for the special iteration of our virtual tax school webinar series. We try to host these once per month, so please be sure to join us in the future if you find today's sessions to be informative. During the webinar, you'll be able to submit questions to the team and get those answered live. With that said, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Mr. Anthony Sampson. He's an enrolled agent and solutions architect here at Wolters Kluwer. And joining him today for the special edition of the virtual tax school series will be Lance Center, CPA and solutions architect manager at Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting. Both are rock stars at what they do, and they'll be sharing their insights on what it takes to start and grow a successful tax business. So without further ado, let's get started. Anthony, if you don't mind taking us away.
Absolutely. So going to introduce myself. So definitely a pleasure to be here today. My name is Anthony Sampson. I'm a practicing EA and a solution architect. So I've got approximately just about a good 10 years of experience, well, actually over 10 years experience now, working with various different firms throughout the metropolitan Atlanta area. I've successfully helped hundreds of firms implementing Wolters solutions. And even though Lance Center is my manager, he's also a mentor and a great friend of mine. And I'll let Lance take it away. He has some really good experience, and he'll share with you about himself.
You bet. Thank you, Anthony. You know, you introduced me as a rock star. I'm not a rock star. Maybe a regional country western singer. Okay, we'll go that with a little notoriety. But been in the business for 30 years. Had my own tax practice for most of that time. I've worked with large national firms, regional firms, and again, I had my own practice for about 20 years. I'm currently solution architect manager. And what we do as solution architects, Anthony and I, is we look for best in process solutions for tax, practice management, and even workflow tools inside of a firm. I do a little sports broadcasting, I do a little stage acting, I do public speaking, and I'm a local community advocate. So I'm really excited about having this opportunity to join you, Anthony.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. So I want to kick things off. Let's go ahead and launch that first polling question. I want to get a feel for the room and just kind of get to know who our guests are, who are some of our attendees. And just curious, how long have you been a tax professional? Is it 1 to 2 years of experience, 3 to 9 years, 10, 19 years, 20 plus years? Even if you're just getting started, don't feel any pressure to say, hey, I've been doing this. If you just got started, definitely let us know. Go ahead, take a few moments here and answer those polling questions. Let's see how those polling questions are coming in at. All right, looks like we've got, interesting, Lance, we got a good about 15% of the attendees so far are saying, I'm looking to get started. So we got a lot of practitioners that are new that are just looking to get started. About 20% are 1 to 2 years. It looks like most of our practitioners that are attending right now are in that 3 to 9 year mix. About 26% are 3 to 9 years. It's neck and neck with 10 to 19 years. Oh, it's kind of neck and neck now with 10 to 19 years. We got a good handful of attendees here. So thank you so much for joining here. We're gonna go ahead and close the poll here in just about a few seconds. We're gonna close that poll. And let's go ahead and get started here with our presentation. So a couple things.
Before we do, Anthony, I gotta say, in a previous life, back when I was in practice and renting it out, when people said, I want to do what you do, I go, no, run away. But the profession's changed a lot. The tools have changed a lot. And I have a completely different perspective today than I did 5, 6, 7, I make it more like 10 years ago.
Absolutely, it definitely has changed a lot. And so actually, I wouldn't say it's got a little bit more easier. It's more simplistic. Wouldn't get easier with all those tax law changes, but it's more simplistic of firing up a firm. So let's kind of talk about that process. And here's kind of our today's objectives. We're talking about learn the value that a tax professional provides to an individual and to businesses. Many of you, like I said, about 15% of you are just getting started, and some of you are in your first, 1 to 2 years. About 90% of you in your first 2 years, and you're kind of figure things out and understand the value that you offer. And just curious, how many of you have licensure, right? How do you become a CPA? How do you become an EA, or things of that nature? We'll talk about that pathway of becoming a licensed tax professional, and typically how long will it take, and also safeguarding taxpayer information. It's going to be very interesting. So please pay close attention on how to properly safeguard taxpayer information. We're talking about the IRS Circle 230 and some of the other client confidentiality responsibilities that are on you as a practitioner. And then also the benefits of running a virtual tax office. We're going to showcase our virtual tax office, which is powered by TaxWise Online. So we're going to be showcasing that today and introduce you to our TaxWise professional tax solution. So we're going to walk through that. Now let's kind of start off with Lance. I'd definitely love for you to take this slide here and talk about what's the value proposition that a practitioner transfers over, they offer to the community, to the public?
So I thank you, Anthony. And look, I think we listed trust first. This is something I love to talk about, especially with new preparers, but also sometimes those have been around for a while. I think people don't always appreciate the level of trust that we as tax professionals have with our clients, customers. And I always put it this way. In general conversation, people will sometimes tell you whether they're having a few health issues, right? They'll tell you about maybe even some legal issues they're going through in their life. But ask somebody what they make and watch them clam up. We as tax preparers know their deepest, darkest secrets, and not necessarily darkest secrets, but the ones that are more closely kept. So that level of trust kind of goes to the next level. In some ways, you can say the tax professionals are the most trusted professionals that your customers encounter, because they are sharing their deepest secrets. So having that trust, it kind of elevates what we as tax preparers can do for our customers. And part of that is elevating the next step, which is commitment. Taking that trust seriously, making the commitment to your customer to not only maintain that trust, which we're going to talk about safeguarding, but you're maintaining the trust, but you're also committing to their success, right? Look, they what do they want? They want an easy button. They want to bring you the stuff, and you do it. They got the federal government asking their deepest secret, right? So they want that trust, but they're also looking for a commitment that you're going to maintain that trust, but also help guide them, not just in today's work, but in the future as well. And because we have that level of commitment, because we have that trust with our clients, we have the opportunity to be a quarterback for them. And look, you can tell I was never a quarterback. I was an offensive lineman, but the quarterback ran the field, right? I was one of the minions, but the quarterback is the one that guided what was going on. And in my practice over the years, I was always able to position myself at least as a financial quarterback, because they would come to me for potential insurance. Hey, who should I use for insurance? What about my investment portfolio? What should I buy a house? In my case, I was in rural Texas, as you can probably tell from my accent. Should I buy a tractor this year? Hey, I'm trying to talk my wife into buying a truck. Can you help me? All those kind of financial commitments, which is not something that I always got in the middle of. You got to be careful about those conversations, especially between spouses. But the point is, you have the chance to help guide them, and they're looking to you for leadership. They've got that trust. You've demonstrated that commitment, so they're looking to you for a certain amount of leadership. What's the reward? Well, that's where the monetary kicks in. It can be very lucrative. Preparing taxes, I think more so today than in the past. In my early stages, I was preparing tax returns by hand, pencil behind my ear, and a big yellow pad in front of me. That's how I did a lot of my tax returns in the beginning. But now that I have the tools to not only prepare, but also automate and do other things that I never could have thought of before, I can now make a better rate per hour than I ever could have in my previous life. So that monetary commitment, if you make the commitment to the profession and to your clients, the monetary will follow.
Oh, thanks, Lance. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I love what you said about quarterbacking. Typically, as a practitioner, you get those phone calls throughout the year where you're saying, hey, I'm thinking about taking some money out of my IRA, or I'm thinking about, retiring, I'm thinking about selling a business or buying a business, and you being that quarterback, you understand the tax implications when they move money from different locations. You can help guide them and quarterback them. So I love that. And being that quarterback is very important. And who's the highest paid player on the team? The quarterback, right? All right. So how do we get started? Let's kind of walk through this here. I'm going to take a couple things here, and also go to a polling question. Just want to get a feel for the room is. I'm just curious, what designation do you currently hold? So we're going to launch a polling question. What designation do you currently hold? Are you a registered tax return preparer? Are you an EA, a CPA, or a tax attorney? Or maybe you're just getting started. So just curious. Please feel free to select your polling question, select the answer there on what you currently are there. Amar, you can go ahead and launch that in just a second. You'll see that polling question come up in just a second. Then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about what each designation is. So you see that come up on the screen. What designation do you currently hold? Are you a registered return preparer, EA, CPA, tax attorney, or are you just getting started here? So it looks like we've got a good amount of people that are just getting started. About 20% of practitioners or attendees here, they're just getting started. Hey, we got a couple tax attorneys on here. That's fantastic. It's good. We got some tax attorneys on here. We've got about 57% of the attendees here are registered return preparers. It's good. We got about 10% that are EAs, 11% are CPAs, and some people that are just some folks that are just getting started. So this is good. We got a pretty good audience here. Definitely a good job on the marketing team and definitely communicating the value of this presentation to the public, to the community. So that's good. All right, so let's talk about our pathway to licensure. We can go ahead and close the poll there. So we're going to close the poll there. Let's talk about our pathway to licensure and what that actually looks like. So looking at this, so we got a couple things. So I'll take the first two. So pathway to licensure. So for those of you that are in the annual filing season program, let's kind of walk through this. Now, there's different levels and different stages. First thing is you want to be able to get a PTIN, a prepared tax identification number, right? And that's going to allow you to be able to prepare tax returns for compensation. So if you're just getting started, you're trying to learn more about how to become a tax professional, the IRS has a lot of information, a good amount of resources on their website about how to obtain a prepared tax identification number, PTIN number. And that's important. Now, there's some continuing education that you got to take each year to keep that PTIN, but also you can go just a little bit step further. The IRS created a program called the Annual Filing Season Program. And I've got some notes here that I want to read to you from the IRS website. I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. So the Annual Filing Season Program, that's coming from the IRS. The Annual Filing Season Program aims to recognize the efforts of non-credential return preparers who aspire to have a high level of professionalism. So if you don't have an EA yet or a CPA or a tax attorney, that's okay. This is a credential that you can obtain. And when you are an actual, when you go through the Annual Filing Season Program, there's some courses, some training that you got to take, and then you'll take a test. Upon passing that test, you become what's called a registered tax return preparer. And what does that do for you? What's the value of being an RTRP? Well, what if you get in a situation where a client, where you prepare a return, and the IRS wants to spend some time and examine that return, right? Also known as an IRS audit, right? You can represent clients for the return that you actually prepared. Now, there's some limitations on how you represent some things that you can do, but you can represent a client before customer service. You can represent a client in front of a revenue officer. I actually got the little list over here on how you can represent the client, but there's some representation that you can do, but it's limited to just the actual returns that you prepared. Versus an attorney, a CPA, or an enrolled agent, they have unlimited representation rights. So it may be a return that they never prepared. So let's talk about an enrolled agent. An enrolled agent is someone who's passed 3 exams from the IRS. You got the individual taxation exam, you got the business section, and you got the ethics section. And typically, after you pass that exam, you receive a license that's going to allow you to be able to represent clients for the IRS. And representation, what does that mean? That means if a client has a particular tax matter, right, you can actually sign Form 2848, that power of attorney, and that gives you the right to represent that client. So you don't have to prepare the tax return versus someone in the annual filing season program, the AFSP. They went to that program, they were a registered return preparer. They can represent clients for returns that they actually prepared. Now, Lance actually has a funny story, Lance, that I'd love for you to tell him, that there's a little box on a tax return, typically on that return, where it says, okay, would you like to be able to, the IRS be able to ask to prepare any questions? Lance has a funny story about that. Sorry to put you on the spot about that. I remember you told us a story about that when that box did not exist. Lance,
So,
got a second.
yeah, I'm surprised you remember that. So I practiced in Texas, and this was years ago before that box was there. And I used to get very frustrated because you would get an IRS notice, and you had to get a 2848, the power of attorney, executed to be able to talk to the IRS on taxpayer's behalf. I'm going, wait a minute, I'm signing this darn return. I'm taking responsibility to a certain extent for the information on that return. I should be able to talk at least about that return. And I got frustrated, and really it was the end of one busy season that we had an inordinate amount of letters for some reason that year. And so I wrote to my senator, Kay Bailey Hutchison, back then from Texas, and suggested that there be some sort of a box added to the tax return. Lo and behold, a few months later, I got a letter from Kay Bailey Hutchison's office that they were fixing to go into some meetings with the IRS and with tax service and talking about different ways to streamline processes, and they were going to bring it up. And then sure enough, I never heard back. 6 months, a year later, the button box shows up. Now, it was probably me and 10,000 other people suggesting the same thing. I'm not saying I'm responsible for it, but coincidentally, I was asking for that at the same time it actually appeared. So very happy to see it when it came up.
And absolutely, that's a good point, definitely. So being able to represent a client, if you prepare that return, you don't have to go get a 2848. You can reach out to customer service, ask questions. Lance is solely responsible for that, just kidding. But being able to have that, so definitely as a preparer, you can do that. As an enroll agent, you have those unlimited representation rights. Now, there's a pathway to licensure that's a little bit more challenging, but it's very more rewarding. And I love for Lance, you talk about the pathway to licensure for you becoming a CPA and a tax attorney.
So it depends on which level you want to achieve. I don't tell everybody this, but I'm really just a car parking attendant. But I have the same. No, I'm kidding, of course. No, see, certified public accountant. Couple things about that. One, depending on the state, every state's differently, but for the most part, you have to have a degree, and it typically goes into a master's degree in most states now to be qualified. But it really encompasses a lot more than just tax prep. So one thing that I think is a misnomer is that, oh, they're CPA, they must be good with taxes. I know CPAs that couldn't handle the basic 1040 without a little help. Because they're in other parts of the profession, accounting, auditing, that type of thing. So having that designation doesn't automatically make you a tax expert. As a matter of fact, enrolled agent, and that's the whole designation is about taxation. So I know some EAs that are much stronger in taxation than other CPAs that I know. Now, I happen to specialize in tax, so don't get a big head, Anthony. I'm probably keeping up with you, right? But the bottom line is, it's a difficult designation to get. However, I will say this: having the designation, it gives you a certain level of professional standards you need to follow, which is great, by the way, because you get additional help on making sure you're doing the right things and you're doing your due diligence and you're meeting the requirements not just of a tax preparer but also of the profession of being a certified public accountant. So it's a harder path. It's a path that a lot of people aspire to. Is it necessary? No, it's not. Again, I know some preparers and some EAs that are fabulous. I would trust them with my own tax work before I trust myself. Well, wait, I didn't say that right, but you know what I mean. I would trust them with a lot of my clients, and I've referred to a lot of EAs when I got out of the business. Then that next level, the sort of attorneys, because it's kind of the same thing. Just because somebody's an attorney doesn't mean that they're automatically tax experts. Now, the IRS recognizes CPAs and attorneys, automatically as being able to practice before them for the most part. However, there's specializations inside of the profession of law. So, to be an attorney but specializing in tax, that's a next level of tax law. That's way beyond compliance. That's typically getting into what I call trouble work. Somebody who needs assistance, somebody who's maybe even trying to use some IRS letter rulings and things like that. I don't want to get too deep, but that's that next level of expertise. But it's a big road to get there. It's even harder to be an attorney than it is a CPA. But then specializing in tax on top of that. So any of those paths are available to anybody on this call if they haven't already achieved them. It just depends on how dedicated and how important those initials are past your name. The CPA initials have been a great thing for me. I'm not gonna lie. Being able to hold myself out as a public accountant and follow the rules that go along with being a certified public accountant have made me better at the profession than I would have, I think, any other way. But that's me personally, and I think the designation is great. Sometimes because you've got letters, you can command a little bit more money, but it's really not about that. It's about doing whatever your chosen profession is in life, doing it properly. And I chose the CPA path.
Yeah, absolutely, Lance. Thanks for sharing that. One time I had working with a client one time, there was a tax attorney involved, and it was due to some criminal things, and there's some filings that me as an EA, I had to go in and amend and correct some returns. So I was able to do the compliance portion. The tax attorney, he handled all the representing in court about the criminal matter. So definitely, as an EA and CPA, we typically handle civil matters. Tax attorneys come in for criminal matters, fraud, things of that nature. All right, let's talk about being the keeper of the client's identity, right?
So, Anthony, actually, sorry, before you go ahead, we had a question in the chat that popped up that was related to the topic at hand, so I just wanted to get that answered. If you could, Rick D'Amato asks, do you have to take the AFSP exam every year if you previously passed it?
That's a good question. So there's some continuing education requirements for the AFSP that you need to take every year. I'm actually looking at it right now on the IRS's website, and it lists out the CPE requirements, the continuing education that you need to take. So once you pass the exam, you've got to maintain a certain amount of hours. I'm glad that you brought that up, Amar, because as a enroll agent, I'm required to believe get about 30. Altogether, it has to be about 72 CPE hours per every 3-year window. I think it's a little bit more for the CPAs. I think it's 120, Lance, you got to get?
120 over 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, 120 over 3 years, so we're 72. So with the annual financing program, it does have an hour, I believe it's about 18 hours. I'm looking at it right now, 18 hours of continuing education, included 6 hours of federal tax law refresher course. So there's some limitations. So when you go on the website, I may be misquoting the last 6 hours of the federal tax law refresher course, but you'll see on the website about the continuing education you need to take, and you're not going to retake the exam. Now that would be very painful if you had to retake the CPA exam every year or every 3 years, or the EA exam or the AFSP. Oh my goodness.
If I had to retake the CPA every year, I would not still be a CPA. I can promise you. I would have given up. but something to point out.
Pass again.
Yeah, something to point out. Yeah, I've heard that can't pass again. But something to point out. The 18 hours as AFSP, and then as Anthony mentioned, 72 hours over 3 years. Okay. Those are all tax. Those are all about the profession of tax. I have to get 120 hours, but they don't all have to be in tax. So it would not surprise me if Anthony didn't have more tax focused CPE that he handled versus the amount of my CPE. Even though I have a bigger number, we take courses in ethics and other stuff too, and of course the A&A side, auditing and accounting, so and general business in many cases. So mine's not always all in tax. So while those requirements are stringent, I will also just encourage you that don't take courses just to get the hours. Take courses to really learn. Their profession's changing around us all the time, whether it's tax law changes or the way to do business changes, and maybe it's even the technology changes. Take advantage of the need to have your CE and get the hours that really benefit you, not just take a box.
Absolutely, that's definitely a good point. And just a correction, it's 15 hours each year, 15 hours of continuing education for the annual financing program. So it's definitely a good perspective on that. Thank you, good point. All right, thanks, Amar, appreciate that. Any other questions about that? All right, perfect. All right, so let's talk about the keeper of the client's identity. So I kick this off right over here. So we have many of you that have said you are a tax professional right now, and some of you that are saying that you're interested in becoming in the profession. Once you obtain a P10, a prepared tax ID number, and you can prepare tax returns for compensation, you are now a financial institution. That's correct. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which was passed, states that all firms that are tax offices that are preparing returns for compensation, you are a financial institution. So that means you have to properly safeguard taxpayer information, just as if you were a bank or any other institution. So such as far as client confidentiality, and you're responsible for more information. Also, you got to take into consideration too the fact that you actually have more information than an actual bank does on a client. Think about it. We got to think about it for a second. You go to the bank and you open a checking account, right? You give them your name, your social security number, address, etc. Right? That's it. You got your checking account, you get your direct deposit, etc. You use your debit card, right? Now the bank, I got 2 kids. The bank does not have my children's social security number and date of birth, right? But you as a tax professional, you have that, right? Because you're preparing the return, you've got dependents on there. What if my mother lives with me and she's also dependent on my return? Now you have my mother's social security number, right? So you have more financial information on a client than the actual bank does. So you need to adhere to the proper safeguarding requirements and also have a written data security plan. That's highly important, to have a written data security plan on how you're going to protect the sensitive information. You're also held to the standard of CERCLA 230. And now I'm going to have Lance talk about in reality and in appearance, but it's very important whether you're a virtual tax office or you got a physical office, safeguarding taxpayer identity is very important. All right, Lance, so definitely if you could talk a little bit more about in reality and in appearance. I know that you have a pet peeve on that one.
Well, I wouldn't go with call it a pet peeve, but just it's an area of interest to me because I think sometimes some preparers forget that it is not, of course you need to have in reality the security, your security measures in place. Got to have them to protect yourself, to meet IRS requirements, to meet your state board requirements if you answer to a state board. So there's all kinds of requirements to have those. So you need those to maintain your licensure, and that's fine. That's that in reality. You got to have those. But in appearance means a lot too. My practice was in a small Texas community, and if you're familiar with small towns, people talk about all kinds of stuff. I had one client call me and ask me how another client was doing financially. I mean, flat asked. There was a competitor. I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I'll tell you what. Let me tell him what you make, and then then I'll ask him if it's okay to share it with you. And of course, they didn't want to do that. Now, I'm saying that only because people gossip, but it's not always about finances. If you are in a setting to where gossiping is happening in your office, quash it, because people are going to make the assumption, they're going to make the leap that if you're gossiping about this, you might be gossiping about finances. That's where that interference comes. If they walk into if you have a bricks and mortar location, they walk into that bricks and mortar location and there's open files all over with client information all over the desks, that's not really good an appearance, is it? They're going to say, I wonder what about when my stuff's on top, right? And then that, we're going to get into physical and virtual as well, but just let me go ahead and dive into that, because we don't work in paper all the time anymore, but sometimes we do. And you have paper files on your desk, and you have a cleaning crew coming that night. Are you locking up your paper files? Are you having your staff lock up the paper files? Every single person who's on the cleaning crew has got a camera in their pocket. They could be taking all kinds of pictures of your client's data. You would never know it. And if you're the result of clients' data being breached, there can be penalties for you. Forget the harm to your business that could happen, but there could actually be actual penalties applied to you, state board level, IRS level, etc. So there's stiff penalties for it. So you got to think about it, not just, well, I've got my written plan, I don't really have to do it. Yes, you have to do it. By the way, you have to look like you're doing it so your clients feel comfortable. And it comes down to something as simple as this. Client says, I'm going to send you my data. Okay, I'm going to email it to you. No, I have a portal, or I have some other secure way. Well, it's easier for me to email it. No, don't accept it. Because eventually, just because the client may in their mind, you may in your mind say, well, the client made that choice. If you don't have a secure channel for them, you didn't give them a choice. So even if you allow them to do it, if you don't give them the opportunity to use a secure channel, that's going to be a breach on your side at some point. It can be construed that way. So be careful about that. Whether it's physical or whether it's virtual, have the security measures in place and use them. Don't just write the plan and put it in a drawer. Write the plan and execute the plan.
And absolutely, and I encourage you too, especially your staff that's coming on board for this tax season, the seasonal staff you're training. Incorporate that in your training. Many of you train your staff on new tax law and things of that nature. Make sure you incorporate that in your training. I used to work at Jackson Hewitt during tax season. That's how I learned how to do taxes. And data security and safeguarding taxpayer information was part of the training course. That's why I learned. And even too, I prepared returns for my sister. My wife's sister. I told my sister-in-law, hey, my wife is not going to know how much you make. Okay, this is just you and I, our conversation. This is just what Lance said. Just because you're coming to me, my wife's not going to know what you make. It's personal information. So really great question. So definitely, you're the keeper of the client.
Yeah. Before you move on, your written plan can be as easy as hard or as hard as you choose for it to be. I encourage you to make it strong, but your choices in whether it's tax preparation software, practice management software, your choices there can help you a whole lot with your plan. Some you're going to have to do more, more's going to be done for you. So as you're evaluating those things, look for those tools that have some of these security features already built in, easy for you to use, but more importantly, easy for your client to use, because you want your client to use it.
Absolutely, that's definitely a good point. Definitely a good point.
So like we actually got another question related to this topic at hand, so I figured I'd just pop in. Jamaica Golden asked if what tools or software would you recommend to ensure clients' data is private and secure for small businesses?
That's a fantastic question. We could actually answer that question here now. We're going to talk about what a virtual tax office is. And Wolters Kluwer has just a significant amount of tools that are going to help you properly safeguard taxpayer information. I'm going to actually walk you through that. So I appreciate that question. Someone's actually reading our mind here. Who's that over there? Is this Miss Jamaica? Jamaica, you are reading our mind. That's actually the next part of our presentation that we're going to cover. What is a virtual tax office? And we're going to talk a little bit about, now Lance has been practicing for over 30 years. So he's going to talk a little bit about when he was practicing before virtual tax office existed and how he safeguarded information. And we're also going to talk about how to safeguard information in a virtual environment. And for some of you, working in a virtual environment by default is what's happening now, right? Even though you have a tax office, you may have some clients that can't actually physically come in and meet you, and they need to send you the information, right? So typically, a virtual tax office is where you can access your tax returns anytime, anywhere, as long as you have an internet connection. That's the most important thing. You have an internet connection, right? So you have a secure way of having online document storage and two-way file sharing. That's important. So let's go back to this question Jamaica asked and say, okay, Jamaica, I'd like you to do my taxes. Jamaica, I'm going to take a picture of my W-2 on my phone and text it to you. Is that the right thing? Should I do that, Jamaica? Should I take a picture of my W-2 and my mortgage statement and send it to you? Absolutely. We need to have a secure, absolutely not. We need to have a secure way to properly safeguard that taxpayer information. We also have a mobile interview tool that we're going to walk you through that can ask clients questions and they can properly upload their tax documents through that. We're going to walk you through that as well. And then also being able to use any device. So whether it's a laptop, tablet, or smartphone, no software installation is required. Updates are made automatically for you, and there's minimal system requirements. This is exactly what a virtual tax office looks like, and you're probably seeing right over here. There's a good example. This is a good example of using the Vault, the document storage solution that we have, and then also utilizing the browser-based solution. So we'll walk through this process of what's it like using a virtual tax office. And I want to take a moment here to walk you through just a little bit about Wolters Kluwer's virtual tax office that we have. Our virtual tax office is powered by TaxWise Online. So on our virtual tax office, we actually have a mobile solution, TaxWise Mobile, and that allows taxpayers from their smartphone or from any device of their choice, they can actually submit their taxpayer documents to you in a secure fashion. And then the practitioner will receive those documents on TaxWise Online and begin the process of preparing that return in a virtual environment on a browser-based solution. Those documents that were submitted, they're going to be stored in the Vault, the document storage section, and then they'll begin preparing that return. We also have some OCR recognition where it can actually read some of those tax documents, such as the W-2 and 1099s and things of that nature. And then, of course, when you're finished, do you want the client to drive all the way to your office just to sign the paper? Absolutely not. Let's go ahead and use that e-signature platform. The e-signature platform, and it has those KBA questions, those knowledge-based authentication questions that they can go through. And, of course, the client portal. Having another way to share that sensitive information. So whether you're using the Vault just for tax documents, or maybe you're offering other services. I know many of you in your tax office, you have your multi-service businesses. Maybe you're selling insurance, maybe you're doing bookkeeping, payroll, things of that nature. You've got the ability to have a client portal store a wider range of documents in your practice. So let's kind of go through this here. I got to kind of walk through here. So I'm going to take a few moments here and we'll walk through what's it like to use Wolters Kluwer's virtual tax office, which is powered by TaxWise Online. I'm going to go ahead and bring TaxWise Online up on the screen, and first we're going to log into TaxWise Online. It looks like I got logged out of it here. Let's go ahead and log into that here, and you'll see TaxWise Online. It's a browser-based solution, so it works exclusively in your web browser right over there. So it's taking a few seconds for my password to load up in there, but you'll see that. And then also, while that loads up, I'm going to show you TaxWise Mobile. So mobile also works in your browser. So one of the questions that we typically get when tax officers are looking at using our TaxWise solution, they typically ask, do you have an app? Do you have an app that my clients can log into? And inside that app, can they submit their taxpayer information? Well, we created that mobile solution called TaxWise Mobile for them to do that. So it's a browser-based product. And what's interesting about TaxWise Mobile is you see that little URL right there where it says my little fake name of my business, AMC Tax. You can customize this. So perfect example, we have a customer here in the Atlanta area, and they're known as iTax Mobile. It's like somebody reset my TaxWiseMobile.com. And iTax Mobile, they were able to customize their site. So we give you the keys to be able to customize your site. So the whole theme of iTax Mobile is tax prep on the go. That's the theme of their tax business. So tax prep is on the go. We maximize every tax refund. So this is exactly when you do business with TaxWise Mobile, this is exactly what it's like. So they're using TaxWise Mobile. They just customize the site to be a good fit for them. So it looks and feels like I'm getting my tax prep on the go. This guy looks really, really happy. Looks like he's getting a big tax refund. He's got a big smile on his face, right? All right, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so now let's kind of walk through this here. So I'm going to walk you through what's it like to go through the actual mobile site. So the mobile site can accomplish a couple of things. One thing that it can accomplish is it can provide an estimate of what your tax refund will be. So for instance, let's say that any of you advertise on social media. We should have made that a polling question. How can we forget doing that, Amar, and you're in marketing? Just kidding. If any of you ever advertise, any of you ever advertise with social media, you can actually send this link out on your social media and say, hey, let's get a free tax refund of what your estimate is. Did you live there for all 12 months of the year? Yes, I did. Are you single or married? I'm just going to put single for right now. Just keep things quickly. Don't let my wife hear me saying that. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Are you a qualifying widower? What if I don't know what a qualifying widower is? What if I'm uncertain about that? I'm going to click on this question mark over here, and it provides an explanation of what a qualifying widower is. So that's pretty interesting that we can see that. We also do have the ability for you to change the language from English to Spanish. That's available as well. That's available for you to be able to use that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put that my age. I wish I was 25, right? I wish I was 25. Let's say that I was 25 years old. And can you be claimed as a dependent on someone else's return? One thing too, I kind of failed to mention, when you do click on this question mark, you'll see it's going to give an explanation, but also it's going to have a link for you to chat with a tax professional now. Now, is this linking someone to chat with Wolters, Kluwer tax professionals? No, they're linking to chat with you, your tax office. So now you have a customized way that your leads, anyone that clicks on your link or has questions, or your prospects, your customers, can be able to begin a chat with you. They can send you an email, or they can go right ahead and call into your tax office. So it's very easy for them to be able to do that. All right, so I'm going to say no, I can't be claimed as a dependent. No one can claim me. Do I have any dependents? I'm going to say no, my kids are not watching this. And then it's going to ask me, what kind of income do I have? Do I have any employment income, unemployment, other taxable income? It's the whole goal is just to get a basic understanding of what kind of income that client has. So I'm just going to say that I made $20,000 right here. I'm just going to enter in some key numbers that are coming in from my actual W-2. And the goal is to get just an estimate of what that refund is going to be. So if any expenses apply to me, I'm going to go ahead and say no. And then now it's going to provide an estimate of what that tax refund will look like. Now notice, you see that little star over here? That's right, there is a disclaimer. This is an estimate of your tax refund, right? Our amount due should only be used as a guide. Actual tax refund amount due will be determined by a tax professional after submission of a completed refund. So what happens is now clients, when anyone clicks on this link, anyone can get a tax refund. But now if they want to go further and they said, yes, I want to have you prepare my return, they'll create a username and password, they'll create an account, and they'll click continue, and they'll begin the process of sending me their sensitive information. So I've already kind of got a step ahead, and I created that username and password account. Now, once they've done that, they can actually come over here and begin to start submitting information. So how many of you happen to be in sales? In sales, when you're in sales, is that word that we use a lot, right? It's called leads, right? Leads. So what happens is that link that you're sending out is creating a lead, or maybe for someone it's maybe an existing customer, but it's creating a lead. And if they want to move forward with working with you, they can definitely come in here and move forward with working with you. So I'm going to go ahead and put some basic information in. We can put some date of birth information in.
And Anthony, more than just creating a lead, you're starting a relationship. And you're meeting the customer on their terms, and you know, building a practice from the ground up. You know, I did it in a non-virtual world. It's a very different way of doing it. Here, our customers want to be virtual. You have the ability to be virtual with them. You know, the formality that used to go along with the tax preparation process is going away, much like the formality in the rest of our lives. This gives you a chance to meet your customer at the point at which they want to meet you, but be compliant with your security requirements and all that at the same time. This system's got that built in already. Just wanted to throw that in there.
No, thank you. Absolutely. Definitely. I'm glad you said that. Building a relationship. Building a relationship is important. And now having a virtual presence is important on building a relationship, right? Right back then, I'm sure Lance had to, even when I was in practice, even though it was still in the late 2000s or early 2010, 2012, I had to go to a lot of chamber of commerce meetings and things of that nature. Now you can build that through, you know, Facebook groups or online chat groups. You can build that. So what's happening right now is I'm uploading my taxpayer information. So it's asking for my driver's license. So I'm going to show you my driver's license here. I'm going to show you my actual driver's license. I'm going to upload that over here. And while it goes through that process, now my computer habits moving a little bit slow here. All right, so I just uploaded my driver's license. That's there. I can enter the numbers in. Now, if the taxpayer, the client enters numbers in here, this will appear inside of TaxWise Online. What's happening right now is what your customer is going to be experiencing. So this is your customer's experience, not your experience. I'll show you what you as a tax professional will be experiencing in just a few moments, but this is exactly what your customer's experiencing. So I checked the box. I said I had a W-2 earlier. Let's upload that W-2. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that W-2 over here. And I actually have Lance's W-2. I got Lance's W-2 and I got my W-2. I'm just kidding. We'll upload the W-2 and we'll bring that right in there. Do you have another W-2? We'll go ahead and say no. And this is where they could go and enter in if they have any deductions. Now, how many of you are using bank products? If you're using bank products, they can begin the process of applying for an advance if they want to. Once they begin the process of applying for an advance, they'll put their name and information in there and they can walk through that process of applying for an actual advance. But it's notifying you that this client is interested in applying for a bank product. And they want to get their refund direct deposited, absolutely. You can have an estimate of what your tax preparation fees are going to be. And mind you, this is exactly what that taxpayer is going through. We're submitting that information to you. Now, I asked a question, how do you want to be contacted? Now, I don't know about you, especially if you got clients that are millennials, it's hard to get a millennial to answer the phone. I don't know, something happens where their phone rings, but they never pick up, right? And email, good luck on getting a client, a millennial to answer an email, right? But text message is becoming that primary way of communication for a lot of people just to get their attention. So we're want to walk you through a little bit later on how we use text messaging to communicate to clients. What's happening is your taxpayer, your customers are able to track their refund status and they're logged in on the mobile site. So they can definitely see that the submission was received, the return is being reviewed. When you finish that return, they can see that they're waiting on signatures for you to sign it. And they got a step-by-step process to see how things are actually happening. They can even message you in the tax office, message your tax office and let you know, hey, I submitted all my documents. Did you get it? I submitted all my documents. They can send a message to your tax office. Now, coming back to you over here as a tax practitioner, we're going to go ahead and log into TaxWise Online. And the process that we're in right now is we're actually in, just 1 second. Just go back for 1 second. We're actually going to this process now. We're going to the TaxWise Online section because we've just finished mobile, and this is what the taxpayer does. Let's kind of walk through in the virtual tax office how you as a preparer will prepare that tax return and retrieve that data from TaxWise Online. So this is TaxWise Online. When you first log into TaxWise Online, it's a browser-based solution, so it's not required to have a certain type of computer. So if you're using a Mac, you can use it. You can even use a tablet if you're using a tablet or something like that. It's pretty interesting. You could even log in on your cell phone. Well, I don't think you want to prepare a tax return on your cell phone, right? So looking at this, we got our dashboard over here. We got some helpful shortcuts, some things that we can see over here, like our TaxWise blog or TaxWise Insiders, TaxWise help. If you need any support or TaxWise chat, you can begin a chat with an actual support representative. So it's very easy for you to get connected with our team to help you if you got any questions about tax matters. It's very easy for you to do that. All right, I'm going to click over here on tax returns, and I'll take us to the return manager. When we come over to that return manager, I can see from a bird's eye perspective all the returns that I currently have inside of TaxWise Online. It's very easy to do that. What you'll notice right over here, you'll see this little thing that says 3, import interviews. So think about it, folks. How about you that are utilizing, your social media, your Instagram and things of that nature to advertise? What if you wake up in the morning on February 5th and you see this number keeps getting higher and higher? And then you wake up on February 7th, this number keeps getting higher and higher. That's because you're promoting that mobile side on your social media channels is actually working. We got right over here, we've got Tommy and we've got Tony. So both Tommy and Tony both submitted their documents to us. We're gonna go ahead and go with, let's pick and choose. We'll start with Tommy, but they submitted our documents to us electronically using the mobile site. We can see it. And when I click on this right here, we're gonna go ahead and open Tommy's interview, and we're gonna see exactly what was submitted. Right, mind you, all this is working through our virtual environment. I'm just gonna move that right over there. All this is working through our virtual environment over here. So now this is TaxWise Online. This is that main information worksheet. And this is what we're talking about working in a virtual tax office. We can prepare 1040s, 1040 PR, Puerto Rico returns, 1040 NRs through the solution. We've got the ability to do that. We also have on the left-hand corner our refund monitor, so we can track the status of a refund, was the return accepted or rejected. And on this main information worksheet, this is the foundation of that tax return. All right, it's definitely the foundation of the return. Now, one thing I want to bring to your attention about TaxWise, when it comes to speed, TaxWise is the solution for you. We've got that need for speed. So if your goal is to prepare a tax return as accurately as possible and save a good amount of time, we can walk you through that here with TaxWise. You'll notice over here, you'll see something called these red underlines. These red underlines are what we call get the red out. They're tied to these red exclamation points over here. So whenever you're in a site, let me go ahead and add it. I'll add something here. I'm going to add this worksheet called interview. This interview worksheet over here. And what happens is you're going to see those red underlines as you begin to answer questions about the client's return. Do you have a W-2? Do you have these type of items? Do you have interest income? It's going to begin to add those worksheets here for you. So if I come over here and say, yes, I have a pension or IRA or something like that, it will add the 1099-R worksheet here for you. Once you've gone through and answered these questions for the client, it's a very simplified process for you to begin the process of preparing the return. Another thing to take into consideration, what about those tax documents? That client submitted those tax documents. Where'd they go? Are they hiding somewhere? No, they're in what's called the vault. The vault is where those tax documents are stored at. So looking directly over here, we can see this tax document. So that W-2, so here's Lance's W-2 that he submitted earlier. We can see his W-2. We can also see the driver's license that was submitted earlier. Right, here's a driver's license that we've got over here. Now what happens with these items? What's gonna happen? What's the next step? We're going to use the OCR technology to actually import this W-2 into the actual tax return. So we're going to go ahead and say, yeah, overwrite the existing information. That's fine. We had one in there. Let's go overwrite that. And then we're going to go ahead and scan. And it's going to be in that process of actually scanning that PDF, scanning that work paper that the client submitted from their phone or their tablet. We're going to go ahead and put that information directly into the tax return. Sorry, my phone is up. My alarm on my watch is going off there. All right, so it just takes a few seconds. While it's doing that, just kind of walking you through there. Is there any questions, Amar, that we got in the chat that's coming up right now?
I didn't see any. Let me check if there's anything more recent. So in this virtual world, how are preparers protected from fraudulent activity if they uploaded fake information, for example, from Douglas?
That's a great question. So this, you'll see the little lock over there. This has a 128-bit encryption that this TaxWise mobile has. Mobile and the TaxWise Online solution, so it's 128-bit encryption. So a very high level encryption we do have on that, and that encryption has to be compliant with the IRS standards. So that information is encrypted. So great question. You see over here, we got this $20,000 and this $5,000. This is the exact same numbers from the actual W-2. The $20,000 and $5,000. We're going to go ahead and say yes. Let's import it. It gives us a confidence number, how confident it is. We go ahead and click import. It's going to bring those numbers directly into the actual solution. You'll see those numbers go in. Very simple process. We'll close it out, and now those numbers are in here. Very simple process.
So Anthony,
sure.
Anthony, I'm sorry. I want to jump in a little bit more on that last question because you're right. The security of making sure that other people can't get the information while it's being transmitted is important. But you know what? Here's the other thing to remember. If you're doing your due diligence and if somebody fills out the wrong information on the mobile app, you're still going to want to see their W-2 to verify. You still have the responsibility to do your due diligence and verifying and such. But you do not have to be your client's conscience either. Okay, if they give you information that's fraudulent and it appears to be proper for you, okay, you're not necessarily going to be held responsible for it, but that is a fine line. So the main thing I want to mention with respect to that is while the secure way of keeping other prying eyes out of it certainly exists in TaxWise and other WK systems, but ultimately you do not have to be your client's conscience, number one. But number two, you still have a due diligence to verify the information through the actual documents. So you're not going to just roll with what they entered into mobile. You're going to want to verify with the actual documentation.
That's a good point. That's definitely a good point. And let's kind of walk through this here for just a second. So I'm glad that you said that here. So while you were talking, Lance, I'm looking at this W-2, and you've got the red underlines here. I know we've got about 10 more minutes left. You've got the red underlines you're seeing here. So we call it get the red out. And I'm verifying what was submitted by the client. I'm verifying that information that was submitted by the actual client. I'm looking at it. I can look at the vault. I'm verifying that. Also, too, I want to take into consideration these red underlines that you're seeing right over here. Once all these red underlines are filled in for this particular item, then all that information is going to populate and we'll have a green check mark over here. Notice back over here on the actual, notice right over here, we got that green check mark on the interview worksheet. We've submitted everything. So we've answered those questions that pertain to that client. So that green check mark is here. Now over here, you'll see that there's a tax refund. The client's getting a nice tax refund. TaxWise Online is a live running solution. So don't be confused. Just because it's a browser-based, it works in your web browser, it's live running. So if I took this $5,000 out, look what happens. It's going to turn to $867. So in real time, it's constantly calculating that information. Now, if I was new, for those of you that are new to preparing returns, your first tax season preparing those returns, kind of getting acquainted, we do have what's called an interview mode. So you can go through a series of questions. You can interview that client. That client's in your tax office. I remember when I worked at Jackson Hewitt, I had to prepare those returns directly in front of that client, interview them and ask them questions. This is a great way that you can do that and go through those series of questions. You complete a good portion of the return using interview mode and then switch back to the form just to verify that everything is right and finalize that return. Now, when you're wrapping up that return, I want to just kind of walk you through the process. When you're wrapping up that return, we're going to go through those diagnostics. Making sure that everything is accurate, making sure that everything is correct. Just making sure you've got that in order to be able to e-file that return and send it off to the client for e-signature. So when I click over here on diagnostics, you'll see your diagnostics over here. I'm just going to go ahead and put in one little number over here. Just bear me 1 second. All right, I'm going to run my diagnostics again, and then you'll see here's what your diagnostics look like. So it's telling me some information. Taxpayer's driver's license is missing something over there, so it's going to take me to that main information worksheet. It's telling me that some things are missing, so I can see that. It also gives me warnings. It says the tax return may be questioned by the IRS, refund delayed, or may be questioned by the IRS and refund delayed when Schedule EIC is used. Is there no withholding on the return? So just give me a warning that this refund may be delayed or may be questioned by the IRS. So just give me that kind of guidance that I can see some good understanding of that. So you've got your warnings and you've got your errors. Now, what if you're preparing that tax return and you're uncertain about something? You're uncertain, like, what should I do? I'm a little bit uncertain about my next step. You have to have something known as the tax book. So we have integration now with the tax book. So you can come over here and type in specifically what you're looking for. So let's say it's child tax credit. Maybe you're uncertain about something. I can come in here and type child tax credit, and automatically what's going to happen is going to link me to the child tax credit, an explanation of it. Now, we partner with the web library in order to have this information easy for you to be able to get quick access to things that you may have just uncertainty about. And I can click on that, and it'll give me a full explanation of child taxpayer due diligence, what happens, lifetime learning credit, all these various different credits over here, and that information, when do they actually expire, things of that nature. I can click on that, and it'll take me specifically to that particular page in the tax book, and it'll take me directly over there. And I got an explanation of it. So having our integration with the tax book library is great. Talk with your solution consultant about it if you want to learn more about the integration. Now, let's say I'm preparing this tax return for this client, and I realize that I'm actually missing something. So what I want to do, I want to message the client and let them know that, hey, I'm actually missing something. So you have the text messaging capabilities inside of TaxWise Online. So we could actually send a text message to the client, let the client know, hey, hi, John, I'm missing your 1099. So we could send that text message, and this is two-way communication where they can respond back, and you can respond back and say, okay, so I just sent the message over here, and I can respond back and clear that message goes right through. It's a very easy way to have that two-way communication with your client. And you can take it a step further when you partner with TextLint, where automatic text messages on their birthday could be sent out. There's marketing campaigns that you can use. Talk with your solutions consultant to learn more about that. Now, when you're finished with that tax return and you want to send that when you finish with that tax return, you want to have that tax return sent to the e-signature. I actually have a signed an e-signature in my actual email over here, my Gmail. You'll notice over here that for this particular client, an e-signature can be sent over and the client can sign a tax return electronically. So this is what the process looks like. Now, when you turn on the KBAs, and KBA stands for knowledge-based authentication, so that means that the client is actually not physically there. That taxpayer will go through a series of questions verifying their identity. How old were you when you had your first kiss? No, I'm just kidding. What street did you live on? What car did you own? Those types of information, just sensitive information that only that client can answer properly, and that's going to validate their identity. The IRS does require that, but the client will be able to sign their tax return utilizing the actual e-signature method. And for those who are using bank products, they could also sign a tax return. They could also sign for those bank products as well, utilizing e-signature. So they'll be able to sign that tax return. Very simple and easy process for them to do that. The 8879 can be signed. Once the tax return has been signed, the client will get a copy of the return, and then that tax return actually loads into the vault. It'll go in the vault, and they'll get a copy of that tax return. All right, so we covered a lot here. I just want to go back to our virtual tax office for a second. So we covered the actual TaxWise mobile, TaxWise online, online document storage, e-signature, There is a client portal that you can also use, that taxpayers, the tax professionals can actually use as well. You can learn more about our client portal by reaching out to our solution consultant to learn more about that. But this is to answer that question that we had earlier from Jamaica. This is what's it like to use a virtual tax office that's powered by, use a Wolters virtual tax office that's powered by TaxWise Online. It's exactly what it's like to use that. All right, so the benefits of a virtual tax office: you can support your clients no matter where you are, meet your clients outside the office, no weather-related disruptions. Also social distancing, right? Social distancing. It's becoming the norm now, social distancing, right? So having that contactless interaction with your client, provide options for mobile-friendly clients, and scale your business up or down. It's up to you. So how do you get started? What's the process of getting started? What does that actually look like to get started? Now, it's different for many different tax offices. You may be in different stages. So for you, you may want to get a full implementation and say, you know what? I want to get TaxWise Online. I want to use a virtual tax solution. I want to use that, a cloud-based solution. I definitely want to have the online document storage. So as clients take a picture of their documents or they can submit it through the mobile site. Electronic signature is important to me because clients may be in different parts of town, or maybe you may be running your virtual tax office from your home, right? Maybe you have a home office and you don't want to pay, $2,000, $3,000 in rent for somewhere. You want to run a virtual tax office. So having tools like this, even having text-to-link, where the client can get a text message notification about their return, that the return is accepted. The client can also get a text message automatically on their birthday, which is fantastic. This is something that you definitely may want to take in consideration, getting a full implementation, especially if you've been in practice now, and you're really trying to hit the ground running and grow your tax office. These are some of the great tools you want to have, but also take it in consideration if you want to do a partial implementation. Hey, I'm just getting started. I definitely need to have a good, strong virtual tax office. So TaxWise online document storage is important. That's definitely something that you want to take in consideration and have electronic signatures. So you can definitely speak with your solution consultant to learn more about that. And I'm just curious though, we're going to go ahead and launch a polling question. We're going to launch that last polling question here. And if you would like to have a more in-depth product presentation of TaxWise and learn more about it, definitely go ahead and answer that question in the poll. If you want to learn more about TaxWise, have a more in-depth product demo. All right, so we've got some polling questions that are coming in there, so people are responding.
Just keep in mind, someone will reach out to you if you answer yes, so just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And we got some people that are already using TaxWise Online, so that's great. We got some practitioners that are already using it. I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. If you're already using TaxWise Online, that's fantastic. All right. All right, we'll leave that polling question open for a second. Any other questions while you're answering that polling question? We'll take some more questions. I'm going to look at the chat here. I'm going to poke around at some of these questions here, Mar. I'm going to go ahead and expand it out and look at some of these questions over here.
Sure.
Let's see. So we answered. So what risks need to be considered when drafting a solid SOW statement of work? That's a great question. So that's when it comes to working with engagement letters. That's a really great question. And what additional tips or advice can you provide to ensure a successful client relationship? All right, I'm gonna let my colleague who's been in practice for 30 years, who's really big about relationships, answer that one. But I'll answer as far as statement of work. Statement of work, I mean, that's where you get into an engagement letter. That's more practice and procedure things. We do have some webinars on our CCH CPE link that cover when you're getting into an engagement letter and what are the things that you want to make sure you have documented into your engagement letter. That's a really good question. But Lance, I'm gonna see if you got a moment, Lance, if you could answer that question. What are some things you would consider to ensure a successful client relationship?
Well, first of all, let's go back to the engagement letter perspective. Look, there's all kinds of guidance out there. I think you mentioned some sources about it. Read up on it. Don't just go, I got to do a letter. I'm just going to take a letter right out of some other source and just I'll use the term copy and paste, or I'll even use the word Xerox it, right? Okay, I just dated myself. I know that, but nevertheless. There are, and look, for the most part, that gives you some coverage. But is it sufficient for what you plan on doing with your clients? Is it sufficient with respect to what you're going to work with them? Are you going to work with them bricks and mortar 100%? Are you going to work with them virtual 100%? You're going to be in between. Those factors have to be considered. your state organizations, and depending on your licensure, again, I have certain state guidelines I have to be careful with here in Texas. Your level of licensing has a lot to do with it. I need to cover things that may not necessarily be tax return preparation related. Do I have to have those in the engagement letter? Yeah, I have to, but it's a better idea for that extra level of protection, right? So that's a loaded question with lots of answers, and I'm certainly not dodging it. I'll just tell you that is one of the most skipped areas that when I talk to people around the country, they go, well, I have this, canned one. I just throw that out there. I put it on the organizer and away it goes. There's more to it than that. And I would just encourage you to spend a little time on that. You need to get CE anyway. We talked about it. That may be where some of those CE credits come. Spend some time on that because that is often the most missed issue by many preparers. So that was not a dodge. That was I wish I could give you all the answers in one, but I can't. There's more to it than just a bad answer.
Yeah, very state specific, very state specific. I even heard one practitioner said, in his engagement letters, he used to say, okay, I'm going to prepare your state return. And he learned, hey, state could be any state. So you have to identify which particular state return you're going to prepare. So that's a really good one. But just as we come to close, Lance, what would you say were some of your successful items? Because you said you still have some clients that you practice for years that you still communicate with, that still love you and still talk to you. What do you say those things for developing a good, strong client relationship and keeping it?
Oh, and listen, I still advise some of my clients. You have that relationship; they become close friends, and in some places, almost family. We're as much friends as we ever were, client related. I don't hold a practice out there anymore. I don't do any of that, but I help them out when they have questions. Right? I help guide them. More the consultative nature than the compliance nature anymore. Right? I've got out of compliance, but I'm still there for consultants. But ultimately. It can be a long and lasting relationship, but it's also one that could go away quickly. I've had that happen as well, where something didn't go just right. Maybe I didn't do something right. Couldn't be possible that I didn't do something right. But just in case I made a mistake, sometimes that'll cost you that relationship. But I think many times having the resources behind you, and I'm not saying, go buy all this. I'm saying that having the right resources for you and your firm, whether it's that state information for your licensing, whether it's the virtual tax platform or something less than the virtual tax platform, making sure that the tools that you use have those safeguards, and those safeguards are in place, because those can be invaluable in maintaining those relationships. If you've done everything you can and something still gets breached, it's probably not going to be a responsibility, and I'm not even talking about legally, I'm talking with respect to the client. If they know and understand that you've always held yourself out with security, with professionalism, with quality, that's going to go a long way to keeping those long-term relationships with your clients, whether they're long-term monetary relationships or, in my case, long-term lasting friendships. They have developed long-term monetary relationships, have turned into long-term friendships.
Absolutely. With that, it's perfect as a close, definitely. And one of the best relationships I've had in my professional career is you being my manager and my mentor, Lance. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I enjoy many years of it. So definitely, I thank you everyone so much for joining us today in this webinar. We definitely hope this was helpful for you in starting and growing your tax profession. This session will be recorded and be disseminated to those of you, I think about a day or two, within about 24 to 48 hours after we complete over here. Amar, any closing remarks? Amar, do you want to take us away?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank you both for being able to join and present. Great job on the awesome presentation. And everybody, we look forward to seeing you guys again in our future virtual tax school webinars. So please be on the lookout for those, and feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.